Hello, this is Bad Anime Sunday once again with my friend, my good buddy Sam, where
Hi guys.
We torture ourselves with horrible.
Well, technically, you're the one who's torturing me.
Oh, well, no, this time I was severely tortured, but
oh yeah, you were.
Don't get me wrong. I get just as bad. It's many bad feelings out of this as you. So we're both in this together. You know, sometimes it's funny when I watch it, but you have to realize when I first watch it, it's torture for me. It's just since I suffered, I want to make sure you suffer the same. Is the main thing. So today we're going to possibly even worse than pupa. Sam agrees.
In fact, I'd actually go farther than that. I'd say this is hands down the worst piece of television I've ever seen, Western or Japanese, in my entire life.
Well, that's pretty bad. It's Diabolik lovers and
Diabolik by name, Diabolik by nature.
It is the most offensive thing I think I could ever show Sam Vin outside of an NTR hentai.
I don't know what that is, and I'm not going to ask.
Don't ask, okay, but it's probably even worse than this. It's for the same sort of people, I guess. And the thing that scares Sam Vin is that, and that scares me, is that there are people who not only like it, but they really, really like this show. They think it's attractive that this happens. And if you've never watched this show, it happens. It's about a girl who has to live with 5 vampire boys, I believe. Of course.
5 hunky vampire fishy boys.
Fishy, they're beautiful vampire boys, I guess. And what they do is they abuse her. They abuse
a lot.
They abuse her a lot. They will pin her down. They will do the equivalent of vampire rape on her. It's not actual rape, so it's okay, I guess. No, it's not okay at all, anime. I don't know who you're trying to fool. They say horrible things about her. They are almost never nice to her, and it's just terrible. And yet, because of Stockholm Syndrome, the girl seems to still somewhat care about them. I don't know why, what's wrong with her, why she would ever care. She's curious about something with her dad or whatever, so she continues to live with them. And every episode is basically the same. They find her, they belittle her, and then they pin her down and bite her, and that is every episode. So she's getting raped every episode, and for some reason women find this attractive. Now I'm going to let Sam Vin give his 2 cents on this.
Well, you have to understand that when I first saw this, I had no real idea what this was going to be. The name okay. I'm struggling to see how I can put this into words, because the central story is about this girl named Yui who, as Paul said, ends up in this place with a bunch of vampire pretty boys. And you think, okay, I could almost understand if this was a reverse harem show. As in, this girl goes to this place and all of these pretty boys are waiting on her hand and foot. But that's not what happens. Instead, what happens is this girl goes there and she is a piece of meat to these vampires. They don't care about her. They don't. Well, I'll get to that later. But for the moment, at the start, they don't care about her well-being. They are constantly touching her up, feeling her up, biting her neck, drinking her blood without her consent, and kind of like pupa. The actual writing and content is boring for the most part, but like pupa. The thing that makes it offensive to me is the way it is framed and animated and shot, because it makes it seem very, very, very sexualized. And I understand that there is an inherent sexuality associated with vampires. Like, there is a certain dark, edgy sex appeal. Like, I get it. I've seen Underworld, and I know of Twilight, so I'm aware that, vampires have long been associated with sex, romance, and all of this lot. But here's the problem I have. It really is, as Paul said, very, very much like rape. the dialogue is extremely suggestive of, and again, it's not shown, but that's clearly what's happening symbolically. The men are pretty much incapable of resisting this girl for no reason other than that she seems to be the only female that they've seen in years. The last one being their mothers, and I'll get to that later, but it's twisted. It's completely twisted that this little girl just gets thrown around, bitten, eaten. Not eaten. Sorry, no, she doesn't get that. Doesn't happen. This isn't pupa, but she gets.
we almost wish it was pupa.
No, she gets bitten a lot. She gets pinned down a lot, and she gets abused physically. Like, these vampires, they hit her, they drown her, they try to kill her, and it's just like she keeps coming back to them. It's Stockholm Syndrome to the max, and it's depressingly boring.
That is the thing. I mean, what I said earlier, every episode is the same. Now, to be quite honest, I didn't last this whole series, so maybe Sam Ben can tell me if every episode is different. But
well, the first 6 episodes pretty much just consist of different vampire brothers bullying her, biting her, abusing her physically in some way. And it says a lot that last night Paul and I were watching this show, and I was actually tuning in and out because I have a drawing challenge to keep up that I have to do every day. And I kind of zoned in and out to do this thing. But every time I came back to it, I never missed a thing. I knew exactly what was going on because the plot hadn't advanced in any meaningful way. Now, after episode 6, to the show's credit, things actually do begin happening. There's this thing called the Awakening that's constantly alluded to throughout the series, and to the show's credit, there is actually a plot involving this. It's not just a word that they repeat constantly but never do anything with, like the experiments of pupa. Like there is something with this Awakening, and it's stupid, and I'll tell you what it is, because it just reveals how more messed up this is. You see, the Awakening, the boys, as I say, they've been without any woman but their mother for years and years and years. Turns out the Awakening is a ceremony perpetuated by their uncle, who was in love with their mother, to revive her, using the body of this girl.
Oh, joy. I see that I missed out on so much with this anime.
Oh, but it gets even better, because the uncle's motivation is that he wants her to come back to life so that he can have her and also to take over the family. Now, here's where it gets stupid. The actual woman, Cordelia, who I just want to say, it's very weird how all of the vampires have Asian names, but the 2 parents have Western-sounding names. I'm just going to put that out there.
Maybe they just thought that since they were living in Japan, that was the way it had to be. Okay, no, just that. They just thought that. Never mind. Keep talking.
But when this woman is brought back to life, she basically starts hitting on anything that moves, and that includes, while she's still in the body of this young Japanese teenage girl, making out with one of her sons.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, it gets better though.
I predicted this, right? I didn't even watch this part. I knew this was coming. I said this while we were watching.
It gets even worse because it ends so abruptly almost. It's like she's killed and then she's not killed and then she is and then she's gone and then the girl's back to normal, and the final episode is very confusing. I was actually paying attention to the second arc mostly, but
as much as you possibly could muster yourself.
Yes, but I couldn't understand what was really happening or what was going on. At one point, she actually goes back into the past, and you think it's a flashback scene, but she gets physically injured, so it's like, so did she actually go back in time or what? And it's very confusing. But the problem, I think, other than the fact, is simply the fact that the plot kicks in too late. This is the kind of plot that should have been started earlier, because then there might be more time to explore the villain, what she wants, and what the uncle wants. why they're trying to do it and what any of this means. But as it happens, it's like, oh yeah, kids, your mum's back, so have fun with that. And then it just kind of descends into complete madness as all the brothers start fighting each other. One of them seems to fall in love with this girl, but that doesn't mean that he actually starts treating her better.
No, that's you're giving this show too much credit.
And that's the thing. Even the final episode is one of the most insincere things I've ever seen, because the brothers do actually act upset when they've lost her. But after the end credits, you see quick snippets of all of them talking about how much they want her / need her. And the show does make them say things that might have been cute or sweet, but the problem is that we've just watched 12 episodes of these kids just being really mean to her, so there's no way we can take this as some kind of sweet, all-conquering love element. They are horrible. They abuse her, they humiliate her, they constantly remind her that she's food, and just to make it even worse, like, even the names add insult to injury. Within about 5 seconds of her entering the door, one of them is calling this girl Yui flat as a pancake, and another one is literally calling her little bitch. And I'm just like,
yes,
oh my god,
most lovable cast of characters you could ever ask for.
The thing is, funnily enough, I've actually come across the TV tropes page, which I needed to use to understand the story, because I didn't have
TV tropes to understand.
I had to use TV tropes because I didn't understand. I did not understand what was going on in this story, so I had to resort to TV tropes. And I found out that apparently some of the vampires have this kind of love-hate relationship with this girl because she's carrying the soul of their mum, because one of them was actually sleeping with their mum, as in when they were a kid.
When they were a kid, they were sleeping with their mother.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask again? My audience members, can I ask again? Why is this show sexy? Can you really tell me why this show's sexy? Is it just because they're pretty boys? Is that all it takes?
Well, actually, the sad thing is, I think I do understand why this show has some kind of demographic.
Oh, God, this is going to be sad.
Well, it's kind of like 50 Shades of Grey in that it's...
And that is sad in itself.
It's sad in itself. I've actually read it, and it's bad. But what makes it sad is that it plays up this whole aspect of, like, power control, and long story short, this is basically a bondage story.
Well,
and if 50 Shades of Grey has an audience and has a movie, then I can look at this and I can say, okay, I understand why this exists. I don't understand why people like it, however, because Final Fantasy Lightning Returns exists, but I don't understand how anyone likes it. In fact, I'm pretty sure no one does.
Well,
so
I've never played it. I played the first two, but never played that one, so I can't tell you.
But but you know what I mean? It's like you can understand why something exists, even if everyone turned out to hate it. But there are people who genuinely like this, and I want to know why.
You know, that's actually the most interesting thing about this show, and the most interesting thing about Sword Art Online. It isn't the shows. The shows are stupid. They're bad. They suck.
But you get why they're there.
I understand why they're there. What I'm more curious about is the audience members themselves. I think I have an answer for that one as well.
What
is making them... What compels them to like these shows?
Well, in the case of Sword Art Online, it's because Kirito, the main character, is pretty much a male version of Bella Swan. He has women fawning over him everywhere. He acquires amazing swordsmanship abilities. He's a constant badass. He always has a solution. He's the ultimate Gary Stu, and young, impressionable teenage boys want to be that kind of guy. Here, I just don't get it, because, okay, the heroine is fairly blank slate-ish, so you can kind of imagine little girls imagining themselves as her, but I still fail to see why you'd ever want to be her, because... I know I have nothing to do with the BDSM subculture, but I'm pretty sure that this isn't how it works, because it couldn't possibly work this way, because everyone would be dead by the time that anything started happening. It's horrible. They really do start drowning her and things. And,
I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure
BDSM
played up.
never gets. You know, I think they inflict pain on each other, but they never go too far. You know, they go far. They go far, but they don't go so far that you might accidentally die, but in the process.
Well, I don't know. I've read about some pretty messed up things on the internet.
But I don't understand those people either, because I'm like, how can it be? I know. Since I don't experience pleasure that way, how could I ever understand? But seriously, why would you want some? And BDSM is usually two people that are role playing. They are role playing, and they agree they're role playing. They're not.
Right.
And they have fun living in their little fantasy for a brief amount of time. They wouldn't constantly do that to each other, because
otherwise they'd be arrested.
If they constantly do that to each other, they get tired of it. Trust me. No matter how much you as a girl, or you as a guy, if you're a guy who liked this show too, that you like this show, you would not want to live this life. There is no way you could convince me you would. No matter how boring you might think a normal life is, you would not want to put up with this for several years. Maybe a month.
Indeed.
Maybe a month you would think it'd be amusing and it's some weird little strange fashion. But after that, it's like, what? You would get tired of it. You would get tired of being abused and treated like a little bitch. And and Stockholm Syndrome aside, I know some people are like, oh, but he's doing this because it's really hurting inside. It had a bad past.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Blah, blah, blah.
It's not a Beauty and the Beast story, because that would imply that there's... Okay, the original Beauty and the Beast story works because the Beast is a person, despite their monstrous appearance. It's just that they made some mistakes, and they're made to be a better person in the end. Now, this is not that kind of story, because these vampires never really show any signs that they are becoming better people.
They don't even show any signs. They just kind of, at the end, decide.
At the end, they just decide.
Okay.
But even then, the things that they say are pretty creepy. So, yeah, it doesn't really work.
So, as it stands, Diabolik lovers, you probably need to kill yourself if you like it. Is all I gotta say. No, I'm just kidding. If you like it, that's fine. We'll never understand each other. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But everyone else, stay. You could, this anime, like Seven said, it's boring. You can't even watch it because it's so bad it's good.
No,
you can't even watch it because it's offensively bad at every. It is offensively bad, but it's not it's not like watching The Room, but where it's hilariously bad in every.
Right.
Because they actually tried to make this somewhat creepy but sexy at the same time, and what they needed to do,
and that can work sometimes.
What they needed to do was
see Kate Beckinsale and Underworld.
The way to fix this show. Well, one, we could take away 5 of the brothers and make it 1 or 2 brothers, so there's less characters, so we can have a proper time fleshing them out. 2, we need to make it solely creepy for the most part. The sexiness can come if there's something to justify the creepiness later on, which would require a lot of character development and fleshing out to work. You cannot just expect them to be beautiful and to work properly. I'm not saying this kind of story could never, ever work, but it would need a lot of skill in writing that this author clearly doesn't have to really work properly. Like the Beauty and the Beast story. I haven't watched it, so I can't even say anything. But that's not, I've watched stories that are Beauty and the Beast and they work because you can't make the character all bad all the time. Or when you make it bad, you make it a point that this is bad, not sexy. Like you make it, the author makes it adamant that this is very wrong. This is not a good situation to be in.
And that's a good point. I think the problem is that they do frame it up to be more sexualized than anything, but the problem is that because of the content, it comes across as creepy, dark, and disturbing more than anything. And actually, if they'd played up that dark and disturbing angle, we actually could have had a fairly decent horror show on our hands. I mean, actually, if Yui had more of a backbone, I'll explain how silly this is. Yui is actually given a knife that is capable of killing vampires. She never actually uses this knife to defend herself once. In fact, she becomes terrified of it because she has no idea what she's going to do if she carried it around with her. Now, my guess, based on her previous actions, would simply be to...
drop it.
Yeah, pretty much just drop it, scream, and
be like,
and all of
no,
that crap.
why are you doing this? Stop! No! And it's like... even though I felt bad for her because she's constantly getting abused, right? It's like, well, you're not doing yourself any favors, girl. You're not even trying anymore.
I think I definitely think so. So I think give her a bit more of a backbone, and make her spend some more time with her, because there is a decent amount of time devoted to this idea that maybe her father was involved in some kind of conspiracy or something. And the villain eventually says, "Oh no, your dad doesn't know anything about this after all." And
What?
it's like,
are you joking me?
I'm regrettably not joking you around.
Why was he even a plot point at all?
I have no idea.
Just an excuse to get a girl in this crappy situation? Great.
It's never actually adequately explained why she's in this situation. It's just she was an easy-to-get girl, I suppose, and that was it.
Oh, boy.
And I think what could have happened, I think it would have been a better horror story if maybe she'd been having to go around, find the pieces of her father's diary, piece together a mysterious past, and either kill a vampire or get out or something, and maybe discover that her kind little priest father was actually this badass vampire hunter in his time. I mean, that could have been some kind of big reveal story. That might have been interesting. And some of the vampires, particularly the one with the hat, I've forgotten what his name was.
Reggie. That's sad that I remember. I remember his name.
No, I know. I don't think the one with the hat is named Reggie. But anyway, my point is, actually, some of them with some tweaking actually could have made fairly decent villains, as in not implied love interests, villains. The guy with the hat in particular is very much kind of like a G-rated sexual predator. That's about as close as they could.
A G-rated sexual predator.
Yeah, that's as close to an actual rapist as they could get without depicting a rapist. And to be fair, I do think he is legitimately disturbing character. Not for the reasons why the show thinks he is, but he is the kind of guy that you think could be a really nasty, despicable villain that we would hate, almost like an anime Joffrey. Because I hated him. And I think he'd be a good villain if they played that up more. Give the girl more personality, develop this whole thing about her father, and maybe give her a spine. Maybe have the plot twist be that she uses the knife, and because of her ingrained Christian faith, she kind of frets out because she's been told don't kill anyone, and so she kind of has this moral dilemma. Does she kill all the vampires, or does she kind of stay true to her pacifistic faith, even though that she knows it'll mean she'll probably be killed? So it's kind of like the difference between, do I get out or do I stay and have a moral victory? And if there's one thing that this show kind of looked like it might be setting up and might possibly be good, it is actually this girl's religion, I thought, funnily enough, because even though it's constantly mocked and abused by these vampires who either are outright disdainful and hostile or just are dismissive, she holds on to it, and she keeps saying things like, it doesn't matter what you say, I'm going to believe in God and goodness and in kindness because, it's really all I have. And I thought, that is so unlike most anime. Most anime would just pretty much, set God up as the final boss. Here it's kind of more of a positive trait for her. It's giving her strength. No, yeah, really. Especially as the show goes on, because she does continue to draw strength from it in her own way. It's just that a lot of the things that could have been good, not enough is done with it. And I think giving her this moral dilemma, have her I don't know if you ever played Call of Juarez Bound in Blood, but there's a moment in that where one of the brothers, a preacher character, accidentally kills a man, and that kind of gives him a bit of a freak out because, of course, he's a preacher. He's not allowed to kill people. And I think you could have done something similar here. Make her kill a vampire, have a bit of a freak out, and then kind of set the ending up as either she gets out, but she kind of has almost, become a badass like her father, a crazy survivalist, and is a little bit messed up, or like have her stay and have her, just be torn apart, but she's kind of won the moral victory because, she's gone out, but she's gone out demonstrating that, she's still, she can endure this, she's strong, and that. And I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I just think, it might actually have worked for the horror to have a sad ending, but at least it's an ending where she stays human, because that's the thing I thought they were going to do. I thought the ending was actually going to be outright turning her into a vampire. I thought that's what the whole point of this was. Turns out it's not. It was really pretty much just to revive her, which doesn't really make sense considering that the villain wanted to bring back his lover. So you kind of think, why would you not bring them back as an immortal vampire? But maybe I'm just thinking, and thinking's bad for something this stupid.
Yes, and this just goes to show you that you can take parts of a story, and as long as you put a little more thought into them, rather than
you can make something good.
You can make something good, even out of something that initially seems unsavable. If you put thought into it, you try to, put effort into it and passion into it, it can turn out. It can turn out good, but you have to think. You have to think while writing a story. What does this character mean to me? What does this story mean to me? How would I react to this story if I had watched it, and I was a reader? And am I gonna forget this story after 2 weeks of watching it? Is my story that forgettable after 2 weeks of watching it?
Yeah,
the stories
you can't just nuke it with Pretty Boys and expect it to work.
Really like and really speculate on are the ones where the author put a lot of thought into them, and so they go back to them, or the ones that are just marketed so well that people just look all over the place for little clues about stories, even if they're not very good in the first place. But effort. It's all we need. It's all we need. In so many anime, they just take a lazy way out. This is one of the worst anime, of course.
Well,
but
I'd say this isn't even the lazy way out, to be honest.
Well, it's just that
because the lazy way out would imply that even a slight bit of effort was put into this. This is really more like they. It pretty much just kind of feels like they said, draw some vampires. Okay, vampires drawn. Done. Just show them being mean. Let's not even try here.
That's true.
Because at least a lazy show, like, I would say Pupa's quite a lazy show in how it doesn't explain things, but at least, like, sometimes, like, the animation shows some innovation, or sometimes a character says a line of dialogue that you think, maybe this isn't, like, maybe there was someone who had half a brain cell to bump around their noggin.
Yes.
But this was not that.
No, it wasn't. Do we have anything more to add to Diabolik lovers, or should we?
I will say that there is, other than the fact that I think the story should have focused more on the horror, I think that the visuals actually reflected that. Okay, there is a bit of a fine line sometimes between like the horror and the dark sexy, and I get that. But this was more visually in keeping with a horror show. And if it was going for kind of the dark, dingy, sexy angle, then the color schemes should have been a bit brighter and a bit more vibrant. But that wasn't the case. This was more kind of subdued, more gothic in its appearance. And that goes back to the whole thing of this should have been a horror show. If it had been like a female harem show, then it should have been brighter and a little bit brighter and a little more vibrant. But that's not what we got at all. And I think it reflects on the fact that the show, well, the very concept seems to have been put together by someone who understood all of the various pretty boy archetypes and why girls like them, but didn't really understand how people interact or how horror or relationships work. And so we have this kind of a big, horrible, ugly mess of a show that, when it's not being outright sexist by just treating this girl as a piece of meat, really, for these vampires to abuse, it's just being boring. And that's the worst crime of all.
That is...
It's not merely that it's a bad show.
It's not because it was bad that I
bad.
couldn't keep watching and finish it, unlike Sam Ben, who likes to torture himself even more than me. It's because it was so boring. It's like, I can't watch another episode.
Pupa at least was vaguely interesting in how bad it was, but this was boring.
Yes.
And that's why it's so bad.
And that's why it's so bad, and I think that's all we have left to say about Diabolik Lovers, and I think we should never, ever talk about it again.
I think so as well. All right, thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening. Next week, we're going to either watch Tekken or Blaze Blue the anime. I don't know which. I'm pretty excited about showing him Tekken, though. If you have any...
I thought we were saving those for February, or are we still deciding what we're doing for that?
Here's the other thing. If you have any suggestions on really bad anime, but has to be short. We don't want to freaking sit through a 26-episode piece of shit, okay? We do not... I'm not that big of a masochist, okay? So... recommend us some OVAs, some movies, or something that would be a lot better, because we could do it a lot easier and we can be more consistent about it. And
yeah, please leave your terrible anime suggestions in the comment section and or on the Facebook links that we provide, and we'll take a look at them and we'll tell everyone what we think of them.
I can't wait to hear Sam Ben suffer even more, but don't worry, I'll be suffering with him. But thanks for watching. See you later.
Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.